Fairy and Folktales of the Irish Peasantry, edited by William Butler Yeats. The Fairies, William Allingham. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. Down along the rocky shore some make their home. They live on crispy pancakes of yellow tide foam. Some in the reeds of the black mountain lake, with frogs as their watchdogs, all night awake. High hill on the hilltop the old king sits. He is now so old and grey, he's nigh lost his wits. With a bridge of white mist Columkill he crosses on his stately journeys from Slieve League to Rosses, or going up with music on cold starry nights to sup with the queen of the gay northern lights. They stole little Bridget for 7 years long. When she came down again, her friends were all gone. They took her lightly back between the night and morrow. They thought that she was fast asleep, but she was dead with sorrow. They have kept her ever since, deep within the lake, on a bed of flag leaves, watching till she wake. By the craggy hillside, through the mosses bare, they have planted thorn trees for pleasure here and there. Is any man so daring as dig them up in spite, he shall find their sharpest thorns in his bed at night. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. Frank Martin and the Fairies. Martin was a thin, pale man when I saw him, of a sickly look and a constitution naturally feeble. His hair was light auburn, and his beard mostly unshaven. His hands were a singular delicacy and whiteness, owing, I dare say, as much to the soft and easy nature of his employment as to his infirm health. In everything else he was a sensible, sober, rational man. As any other man, but on the topic of fairies, the man's mania was peculiarly strong and immovable. Indeed, I remember that the expression of his eyes were singularly wild and hollow, and his long narrow temples sallow and emaciated. Now this man did not lead an unhappy life, nor did the malady he laboured under seem to be productive of either pain or terror to him, although one might be apt to imagine otherwise. On the contrary, he and the fairies maintained the most friendly intimacy, and their dialogues, which I fear were woefully one-sided, one must have been a source of great pleasure to him, for they were conducted with much mirth and laughter, on his part at least. Well, Frank, did you see the fairies? Wisht, there's 24 of them in the shop, the weaving shop this moment. There's a little old fella sitting on the top of the sleighs, and all to be rocked while I'm weaving. The sorrow's in them, but they're the greatest little schemers alive, so they are. See, there's another of them at my dressing noggin. Go out o' that, you shingon, or bad kiss to me. If you don't, I'll have you a mark. Ha, cut you, you thief, you. Frank, aren't you afeard of them? Is it me, arrah, what would I be afeard of them for? Sure, they have no power over me. But why haven't they, Frank? because I was baptized against them. What do you mean by that? Why, the priest that christened me told my father to put in the proper prayer against the fairies, and a priest can't refuse it when he's asked, and he did so. Begorra, it's well for me that he did. Let the tallow alone, you little glutton, see. There's a weeny thief o' them, atin' my tallow, because, you see, it was their intention to make me king of the fairies. Alright, fact this one obviously has like schizophrenia or something. Ah, sure. It's grand. Is it possible? Devil a lie in it. Sure, you may ask them, and they'll tell you. What size are they, Frank? Oh, little wee fellows, with green coats and the prettiest little shoes you ever seen. There's two of them, both old acquaintances of mine, running along the yarn beam. That old fellow with the bob wig is called Jim Jam, and the other chap with the three-cocked hat is called Nicky Nick. Nicky plays the pipes. Nicky, give us a tune, or he'll milk you. Come now. Locker and shore. Wished. Now listen. The poor fellow, though weaving as fast as he could all the time, yet bestowed every possible mark of attention to the music, and seemed to enjoy it as much as it had been real. But who can tell whether that we look upon as a privation may not, after all, be a fountain of increased happiness, greater, perhaps, than any we ourselves enjoy. I forget the poet who says, "Mysterious are thy laws, the vision's finer than the view. Her landscape nature never drew, so fair as fancy draws." No, I think this guy needs help. I think he needs some help. I could see the Irish freaking... The Irish technique towards managing mental health in this country hasn't really changed that much. Ah, sure, it'll be grand. He just sees the fairies, hi. Oh no, that's Frank. Frank's alright. Frank's grand, you know. He's just sacrificing another cow to the fairies. The fairies keep telling him he needs more and more. Sure. He wants to babysit one of me children, hey. So he says the fairies want to speak to him. Bloody hell. Many a time when a mere child, not more than 6 or 7 years of age, have I gone as far as Frank's weaving shop in order, with a heart divided between curiosity and fear, to listen to his conversation with the good people. They left children unattended with him. From morning till night his tongue was going almost as incessantly as his shuttle, and it was well known that at night, whenever he awoke out of his sleep, the first thing he did was put out his hand and push them, as it were, off his bed. Okay, I don't know why they were watching him in his sleep, but... Go out of this, you thieves, you. Go out of this now and let me alone. Nicky, is this any time to be playing the pipes and me wants to sleep? Go off now, troth, if yez do. You'll see what. If I'll give yez tomorrow. Sure, I'll be making new dressings, and if yez behave decently, maybe I'll have yez the scraping o' the pot. There now. Ouch, you poor things. They're decking craters. Sure, they're all gone, barren poor Redcap. That doesn't like to leave me. And then the harmless monomaniac would fall back into what we trust was an innocent slumber. No, this man's fucked. This man's a danger to himself and others. Come on, let's go. I'm sorry. You need a freaking. Yeah. About this time, there was announced to be occurred a very remarkable circumstance which gave poor Frank a vast deal of importance among the neighbours. A man named Frank Thomas, the same in whose house Mhic Mile held the first dance I ever saw them, as detailed a former sketch. This man, I say, had a child sick, but of what complaint I cannot now remember, nor is it any importance. One of the gables of Thomas's house was built against, or rather into, a forth or rath called Towney, or properly Tonach Forth. It was said to be haunted by the fairies, and what gave it a character peculiarly wild in my eyes, that there were on the southern side of it 2 or 3 little green mounds, which were said to be the graves of unchristian children, over which it was considered dangerous and unlucky to pass. I'm sure a farmer dug all that up. At all events, the season was midsummer, and one evening about dusk, during the illness of the child, the noise of a handsaw was heard upon the Forth. This was considered rather strange, and after a little time a few of those who were assembled at Frank Thomas's went to see who it could be that was sawing in such a place, or what they could be sawing at so late an hour, for every one knew that nobody in the whole country about them would dare to cut down a few of the white thorns that grew upon the Forth. On going to examine, however, to judge their surprise, when after surrounding and searching the whole place, they could discover no trace of either the saw or sawer. In fact, with the exception of themselves, there was no one, either natural or supernatural, visible. They then returned to the house and scarcely sat down, and then it was heard again within 10 yards of them. Is this what happened to the tree over in the sycamore tree over in Hadrian's Wall or something? Another examination of the premises took place, but with equal success. Now, however, while standing on the Forth, they heard the sawing in the little hollow, and about 150 yards below them, which was completely exposed to their view, but they could see nobody. A party of them immediately went down to ascertain, if possible, what their singular noise and invisible labour could mean, but on arriving at the spot they heard the sawing, to which they now added hammering and the driving of nails upon the Forth above, while those who stood on the Forth continued to hear it in the hollow. On comparing notes, they resolved to send down Billy Nelson's for Frank Martin, a distance of only about 80 or 90 yards. He was soon on the spot, and without a moment's hesitation solved the enigma. "'Tis the fairies," said he. "I see them. Busy creatures they are." "What are they sawing, Frank?" "They're making a child's coffin," he replied. "They have the body already made, and now they're nailing the lid together." The night the child died, and the story goes that the second evening afterwards the carpenter who had called up to make the coffin brought a table out from Thomas's house to the Forth as a temporary bench, and it is said that the sawing and hammering necessary for the completion of the task were precisely the same which had been heard the evening but one before, neither more nor less. I remember the death of the child myself and the making of its coffin, but I think the story of the supernatural carpenter was not heard in the village for some months after its interment. Frank had every appearance of a hypochondriac about him. At the time I saw him, he might be 34 years of age, but I do not think, from the debility of his frame and infirm health, that he has been alive for several years. He was an object of considerable interest and curiosity, and often I have been presented, when he was pointed out to strangers, the man who could see the good people. Absolute schizo, frickin' possibly a child murderer. Yeah, okay. See, I was hoping this would be a bit more. The priest's supper, tea, croft, and croaker. It is said by those people who ought to understand such things that the good people, or the fairies, or some of the angels who were turned out of heaven, and who landed on their feet in this world, while the rest of their companions, who had more sin to sink them, went down further to a worse place. Be this as it may, there was a merry troop of the fairies, dancing and playing all manner of wild pranks on a bright moonlit evening towards the end of September. The scene of their merriment was not far distant from Inchigeala, in the west of the county Cork, a poor village although it had been a barrack for soldiers, but great mountains and barren rocks like those around it are enough to strike poverty into any place. However, as the fairies can have everything they want for wishing, poverty does not trouble them much, and all their care I wish I could wish for anything I want. And all their care is to seek out unfrequented nooks and places where it is not likely anyone will come to spoil their sport. Yeah, basically me. On a nice green sod by the riverside were the little fellows dancing in a ring as gaily as may be, with their red caps wagging about at every bound in the moonshine, and so light were these bounds the lobs of dew, although they trembled under their feet, were not disturbed by their capering. Thus did they carry on their gambols, spinning round and round, twirling and bobbing, diving and going through all manner of figures, until one of them chirped out, "Cease, cease your drumming. Here's an end to our mummering. By my smell I can tell a priest this way is coming." And away every one of the fairies scampered off, as hard as they could, concealing themselves under the green leaves of the lusmore, where, if their little red caps should happen to peep out, they would only seem like its crimson bells, and more hid themselves at the shady side of the stones and brambles, and under the bank of the river, and in holes and crannies of one or another. The fairy speaker was not mistaken, for along the road which was within the view of the river came Father Horrigan on his pony, thinking to himself that he was late, that he would make an end of his journey at the first cabin he came to. According to his determination, he stopped at the dwelling of Dermot Leary, lifted the hatch, and entered with "My blessing on all here." I need not say Father Horrigan. Father Horrigan was a welcome guest wherever he went, for no man was more pious or better beloved in the country. Now it was a great trouble to Dermot that he had nothing to offer this reference for supper as a relish to the potatoes, which, quote, the old woman, for so Dermot called his wife, though she was not much past 20, had but he's like 50, had down boiling in a pot over the fire. He thought of the net which he had set in the river, but as it had been there only a short time, the chances were against his finding a fish in it. No matter, thought Dermot, there can be no harm in stepping down to try, and maybe, as I want the fish for the priest's supper, that one will be there before me. Down to the riverside went Dermot, and he found in the net a fine salmon as ever, jumped in the bright waters of the spreading Lee. But as he was going to take it out, the net was pulled from him. He could not tell how or by whom, and away got the salmon, and went swimming along with the current as gaily as if nothing happened. Dermot looked sorrowfully at the wake in which the fish had left upon the water, shining like a line of silver in the moonlight, and then with an angry motion of his right hand and a stamp of his foot gave vent to his feelings by muttering, "May bitter and bad luck attend you night and day for a blackguard schemer of a salmon wherever you go. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, if there's any shame in you, to give me the slip after this good fashion. And I'm clear in my own mind you'll come to no good, for some kind of evil thing or other helped you. Did I not feel it pull the net against me as strong as the devil himself?" "That's not true for you," said one of the little fairies, who had scampered off at the approach of the priest, coming up to Dermot Leary with a whole throng of companions at his heels. "There was only 12 of us pulling against you." Dermot gazed on the tiny speaker with wonder, who continued, "Make yourself noways uneasy about the priest's supper. For if you will go back and ask him one question from us, there will be as fine a supper as ever were put on the table, out before him in less than no time." I'll have nothing at all to do with you," replied Dermot in a tone of determination. After a pause he added, "I'm obliged to you for your offer, sir, but I know better than to sell myself to you, or the like of you, for a supper, and more than that, I know Frank Horgan." "Father Horgan has more regard for my soul than to wish me to pledge it for ever, out of regard for anything that you could put before him. So there's an end of the matter." The little speaker, with a pertinacity not to be repulsed by Dermot's manner, continued, "Will you ask the priest one civil question for us?" Dermot considered for some time, and he was right in doing so, but thought that no one could come to harm without asking a civil question. "I see no objection to do that same, gentleman," said Dermot, "but I will have nothing to do with your supper, mind that." Then the little speaking fairy, whilst the rest came crowding after him from all parts, "Go and ask Father Horgan and to tell us whether our souls will be saved at the end of the last day, like the souls of good Christians. And if you wish us well, bring back word what he says without delay." Away went Dermot to his cabin, where he found the potatoes thrown out on the table, and his good woman handing the biggest of them all, a beautiful laughing red apple, smoking like a hard-ridden horse on a frosty night, over to Father Horgan. "Please, your reverence," said Dermot, after some hesitation, "may I make so bold to ask your honour one question?" "And what might that be?" said Father Horgan. "Why, then, begging your reverence pardon for my freedom, it is, if the souls of the good people are to be saved at the last day." "Who bid you ask me that question, Leary?" said the priest, fixing his eyes upon him sternly, which Dermot could not stand before at all. "I'll tell no lies about the matter, and nothing in life but the truth," said Dermot. "It was the good people themselves who sent me to ask you the question. There they were in thousands down the bank of the river, waiting for me to go back with the answer." "Go back by all means," said the priest, "and tell them, if they want to know, to come here to me themselves, and I'll answer that or any other question they are pleased to ask with the greatest pleasure in my life." Dermot accordingly returned to the fairies, who came swarming around him to hear what the priest said in reply, and Dermot spoke out among them like a bold man as he was. But when they heard that they must go to the priest, away they fled, some here, some there, and some this way and that, whisking by poor Dermot so fast and in such numbers that he was quite bewildered. When he came to himself, which was not for a long time, when he went back to his cabin and ate his dry potatoes along with Father Horgan, who made quite light of the thing, but Dermot could not help but thinking it was a mighty hard case that his reverence, whose words had the power to banish true fairies at such a rate, should have no sort of relish to his supper, and that the fine salmon he had in the net should have been got away from him in such a manner.